Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 13. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, yeah, me and Connor are here. We're going to talk about it, just you and I. We're going to talk about this episode of Twin Peaks.
Oh, we're off to a great start.
Oh, I decided I was going to do that joke about a minute after I watched it. I'm not going to lie. That was
I can
planned.
tell you've been saving it.
Yeah, I had that locked and cocked and ready to go. This may sound strange, but I actually have more notes for this episode than I've ever had.
Mine's up there. I don't know without counting, but it's up there.
Usually I'm three, maybe 3.5. I am at 4.5 pages of notes for this one for some reason. I don't know why. I can't really point it and go, oh, there's clearly more stuff there to write down. It was just, that's where I ended up. I write, and there we go. So yeah, we're going to get into it. So this is part 13. And so, first things first though, actually. We get a really good comment about last week's episode. A little detail that we did not quite catch, which I thought was quite good. Diane's texting Doppelkoop, or actually no, it's not when she's texting, it's when she's looking up the coordinates towards the end of the episode. Eagle-eyed commenter noticed that her nails were all painted different colours, but there was one that was red, and the one that was red, if you remember, Gordon from a few episodes ago talked about the spirit finger, and how that one was the one that meant something.
Yeah.
It was that one. Interesting observation. Yeah, interesting. Maybe lands a bit more credence to the she's actually good and whatever she's doing with Doppelkoop is...
Yeah.
Or maybe it lends credence to the opposite, I'm not sure. But good catch. I'll say that. But this episode, let's go into this one. And there's some spirit finger action on this one as well.
There is. I think before we actually get into it, I think it's safe to say we probably enjoyed this more than last week's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, I know I definitely did. I didn't want to speak for you with absolute certainty, but
I would agree with that. That said, one of the amazing things I think this episode does is that it actually maybe improves a scene from last week that we weren't as into.
Yeah, which is something we thought at the time might have, as viewed as a larger whole. We said,
yeah, and I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but
no,
it's not concrete yet. But certainly, it got my brain thinking a lot more than last week did, and as a result, I've came to some speculation that suddenly makes it a lot more fascinating, and we'll get into all that. I will say, I think what's funny about this episode is that from the outset, I don't think it looks like a big one. I don't think you watch this one and go, oh, that was like, obviously not 8, but even like episode 11, it felt quite big when we watched that. I was like, we said that was probably the best one outside of 8. Right? This one doesn't feel as big as that. But I actually think some of the scenes that don't feel like a big deal feel a lot more important once you start thinking about them and what they're maybe getting at.
No, I agree with that.
So let's get into it. And of course, the highlight of the episode is at the end, the roadhouse scene. I'm not going to say what it is yet.
Oh God!
But we had the best musical. You know what? The only other time in this season that we had an introduction to the band, right? When we had the guy come up and say, and now the Roadhouse presents. The only time that's happened so far was the 9 Inch Nails.
Yes.
And we got an introduction to the musical act in this episode, and I thought, oh, it must be a big deal.
And then it got to the name.
And then he said the name, and it took me a split second to process what he just said, and then the guitar started playing.
I basically did a spit take when I heard that.
And then James, who... He must clench his balls to get that sound out.
All right, are we just starting at this point here?
Apparently we are.
We're not burying the lead here. That stupid song is back.
He's not learned a new song in 25 years.
Do you know what cracked me up most? Obviously that song is for a very specific scene in the original show. And I loved how he had 2 girls as the backup singers.
Yeah, the back, and I was like, oh, there's not Maddie and not Donna.
Yeah. Oh, it was killing me.
Oh, And to go along with this, James has always been cool malarkey that Lynch is pushing now. There's a woman in the crowd who I assume he knows in some capacity.
It seems that way, yeah.
Gets very
I really
emotional.
hope so, otherwise this is very strange.
Yeah, if this is just her reaction to seeing the epitome...
The song has touched her that deeply.
The epitome of human machismo that is James Hurley. Like, hearing him sing on that stage at that decibel, if that's the reaction, admittedly, I wanted to cry as well, but I was going to cry for very different reasons.
Yeah.
I'm going to lie, though, I was laughing like a madman once I got over the shock, so
I couldn't stop. Oh, God. Dear. Lynch, you bastard.
He's a madman.
He is.
He's an absolute madman. There's so much other stuff in this show that I can't begin to process and I have to think about. But the one thing that truly baffles me is putting James in that stage and having him sing that damn song. Oh dear. Alright, let's get to the meat.
The rest of the actual episode.
Although we start with something kind of silly, actually, in a fun way. We start the Lucky Seven Insurance, and we have the train, the money train, with the Mitchum brothers, the girls, and of course Cooper. And they're, this really upbeat music's playing. My favourite part of all this, though, is they come, training into sort of the lobby, the floor that they're all on. Yeah. And Anthony just sort of goes up to see what the fuss is about. He looks through his blinds, and he sees them dancing with Doogie, and he just
He's terrified.
It's fantastic. Has honestly, Tom Sizemore's reactions in this episode in general are just all
they're pretty great.
They were doing great stuff for me. Him hiding behind the desk throughout this whole section, so the Mitchum brothers don't see him and want to kill him. It was great stuff. So more on this later, but I did notice when they go into the office, Bushnell says, "Oh, you must have made quite a night of it," and I thought that was curious.
I've also caught this as well because of last week.
Curious, because of course we had a scene last week with Cooper, where he was with Sonny Jim,
he was playing catch,
and this makes it sound like them going out to dinner was the previous night.
That's the assumption, because even to jump ahead a little bit, his wife's like, "Hey, when you didn't come home last night."
Exactly, and there's a lot more in this in Twin Peaks section later on I've got to talk about, but at the very least it seems like that baseball scene might have been before, especially given the backyard's not got something in it before.
It has to have been before, or it didn't actually happen. And for some reason it was in his head. I don't know why we'd have seen it like that.
I think that's reaching. I don't know why I would...
I'm just...
I mean,
this is the only other alternative.
Sure. I just think it took place before.
It's most likely.
Or they took him out again a second night. I guess.
No, I don't buy that.
Yeah, it's weird. But then again, we talked about how things seem to have been shifted around. But this is the first time where it feels like it's actually went. Oh wait, no, that feels like something's not lined up now.
Yeah, it does.
But ultimately, it's just a simple little scene of him playing catch with his kid. It's not a big deal. But I mean, I did notice that I cut that line and went, what?
Yeah.
What are you saying, Bushnell? So Bushnell gets some gifts. The Mitchum brothers have brought him some gifts, and Candy, instead of being staring off into space, she's giggling like a madman throughout this whole thing. She's dead excited to show him what he's got, and
she's like a showgirl on a game show.
Turned up to 11 though, it's not.
Yeah.
It's it's almost too much. But then she's like, oh, here's your cufflinks, and then it's like, and the keys to your new car. That's the game show part specifically. And it's like, yeah, it's a BMW. Now you and Doogie have got matching sets. So that's kind of the opening scene. Of course, Anthony does call Mr. Todd at the conclusion of this scene. And of course, Todd did say to him that if your plan failed, then you would have to kill Doogie yourself. And that's basically just what this scene is, reiterating that. And of course, Todd looks terrified himself. He's obviously worrying about higher up the food chain than Anthony is. So
clearly.
Pretty straightforward. I cannot say that I was not deeply enjoying the train and the gift giving. All of it was delightful.
It was wacky fun.
It was. So then we went to Dougie's house, and we saw kind of the sort of this connective tissue here, because it cuts to Janie E, and there's these delivery men, and they've got a climbing gym for Sonny Jim, which I thought was amusing, like, because he actually said it like that.
Jim's gym.
Yeah, and she's like, wait, what? Courtesy of the Mitchum brothers. And then she looks over, and the BMW is sitting there with a giant red bow on it. It's like, and the car? Yep, that too. Also Mitchum brothers. Okay. More on this a little bit later, but again, just this idea that everyone's lives around Cooper are improving immensely because of his presence.
Yeah.
Quite that's, and obviously, yes, Red Bull, of course. And then it cuts to that night, and we see this climbing gym. And it's not just a climbing gym. There's a big arc with lights on it, and there's a spotlight. There's a spotlight going around the backyard.
Yes.
It is the most ridiculous looking thing I think I've ever seen. And there's a dreamlike music playing.
Swan Lake.
Swan Lake, but it's a very dreamlike version. Look, it's just like the... It's not a xylophone, but
it's like a music box sort of version.
Yeah. It's like exactly. It's not big and grandiose, but it makes you feel kind of dreamlike because of it. Kind of. So, and again, making everyone's life happier. And Janie says something like, "Oh, Sonny Jim's on seventh heaven," and he repeats the line like he normally does, and I'm like, heaven's not all that different to maybe a place you've just been spending time. I mean, it wasn't good, but. The idea
the idea of an afterlife of some sort.
Yeah, so again, Bushnell's caught this thing in his company. He's getting gifts. Janie's getting gifts. She's got a new car. Sonny Jim's got a climbing gym, and a very elaborate climbing gym, not just your typical old sort of thing. Everyone's lives, and the Mitchum brothers even, they got the money. They're happy. Like everyone around them, the old woman.
Yeah, it's all good for everyone right now.
Cooper brings nothing but the dreams. Like, I swear, it should have been his face on that gold ball in the episode 8.
Maybe it should have been.
Maybe we'll see the sequel and he has a gold ball. He's a bigger gold ball.
Cooper just has massive gold balls, clearly.
So now we cut to Montana. Now, we see Doppelkoop for a couple of episodes since we've seen him, so that was exciting. And then I thought, maybe it wasn't him, because we speculated last week, the guy almost got run over by the car going into Twin Peaks. Oh, that was Doppelkoop. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. I'm still under the impression here, at least I think, that all the Twin Peaks stuff is later in the timeline. They're all close to this date, this final date we're building to, and all the other stuff is a bit earlier. I still think that. So I still think that car going into Twin Peaks was probably still Doppelkoop.
Yeah, probably. It still feels a little bit strange, that again, in the same way that the catch scene feels like it was out of place. That one does feel a bit strange to me as well. It feels like if we're going to follow Doppelkoop, you want that to be his last moment in that story. Well,
here's the thing though, we're not supposed to know that's Doppelkoop yet that drove out of Twin Peaks. I think that's just one of these small things you can pick up. Once it becomes clear that they've not been running alongside each other, that's like one of those... It'd be different if we actually get a shot of them driving in and we actually seen it.
Right, yeah, okay.
It's just our speculation at this point, to be fair. I mean, it could be someone else, but I think it is him.
Yeah.
Just with the timeline not quite syncing up yet. So, I wrote down that. I also noted down this. So what this place is, it's where Ray was going. This sort of safe haven, this criminal organisation, and I'm using that term not really knowing what this group does. All I know about this group is one, they have a giant ass TV.
It's pretty cool.
Like, it's huge. It's like, I used to have a projector with a projector screen, and this TV's bigger than that screen.
It's a wall, basically.
It's a wall. And they've got the security camera feed on it. So, like, Ray's watching Doppelkoop get out the truck, and he's, like, smaller on the screen. It's insane. And then the other thing I know about this group, they have a very interesting way of picking the leader.
It's one way of phrasing it.
They pick
interesting
the leader.
or utterly moronic.
Oh, it's not moronic. I'll accept intriguing. I'll accept strange. I'll accept mesmerizing. I will not accept moronic.
Look, I'm just saying, I do not think this process is the most efficient way to get a good leader.
Connor, Their evil lair has nothing but a big TV and then a second room that has one table and 2 chairs in it, so they can facilitate the arm wrestling matches that they need to use in order to pick the leader. They're clearly not...
Sorry, how does this not sound moronic?
It's not moronic. It's amazing, is what it is. The grin I had on my face as they revealed how they picked the leader, and then they take him to another room, and it's just a table and chair, and there's nothing else. It's a big empty room. It's huge, a huge room.
It's
big
massive.
Empty space.
It's so that they can fit everyone in as a big crowd. They all want to climb around and watch it.
So they let Cooper in. Also, the bald guy here, what was his name? Renzo. The actor played Jason Voorhees, I think, in Freddy vs. Jason. So, either that, maybe the remake, maybe both. I can't remember, but he definitely played Jason at one point. So,
you would know that.
Bit of trivia. Yeah, well, you know, slasher movies. So yeah, they let him in, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, you're a contender," and so explain what happens, and they explain, "Okay, Renzo's the boss because he no one can beat him at arm wrestling. So you face him at arm wrestling. If you lose, you're one of us now, and if you don't do what he says, we'll kill you. If you win, you're the new leader. But you can walk away right now." And of course, and Doppelkoop plays into the ridiculous of it. He's like, "What is this, kindergarten? Nursery school?"
It's strange, isn't it?
Sure. Which gets him a punch in the back of the head on the way into the room, if you do recall.
I do.
So obviously I'm thinking, right, Doppelkoop's about to mess this guy up in a bad way. You know?
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how they were going to handle it, how they were going to do it. And obviously, in fact, another thing actually, I liked when he's coming up in the elevator, it's like there's just like this army of guys with guns. Like he's one person, and we know he's that dangerous. They should probably be all ready with the guns, but it was amusing to me that they had this big army of guys like that. So they go into the room and they have the arm wrestling match, and again it builds up in a really amusing way because the henchman guy is like, "You ready, boss?" And he's like, "Are you ready?" And he's talking to Doppelkoop, and Doppelkoop's like reacting. He's like, everyone's laughing, and like I'm like, "Nah, Doppelkoop's about to mess this guy up."
Yeah.
And of course the arm wrestling match starts, and like Renzo immediately like, gets his hand up like near a victory.
Yeah.
And it stays there for a while, and then Doppelkoop just sort of puts it back to the start and goes starting position.
Do you know what, the way he keeps saying starting positions really reminds me of the Dougie speech. You know, where he'll say something and just kind of stick on it.
All right, okay.
And the way you're doing this, you go starting positions, and you just deliver it like the same sort of way, and then just nothing else.
I never really picked up on that comparison. Obviously, the first time he did it, I was like, I don't quite get it. And they did it again, and I'm like, oh, he's showing him that he's in complete control. Because then he does it, then he goes one step further, and he's like, yeah, when you put my hand here, it really hurt, and he actually goes in the direction, you know, the direction he'd be losing, and like, but then it really hurt when you put me down here. But it's much more comfortable at starting position, and he's in control the entire time. And then he puts his hand down, and then he goes back to the starting position. And I actually read this as a little bit of a meta commentary. Obviously, beyond the character purpose of like showing that he is in complete control.
Yeah.
Completely. The meta commentary here is that, you know, as a TV show, it's like there's this thing in network TV, you have to always maintain the status quo. You have to always go back to the starting position. It's like, this is what's more comfortable.
Yeah.
The risk is down here, the risk is back there, but now you always go back to the starting position. Just a little bit of meta commentary. It's like, yeah, it's not the same as the old show.
It almost feels like going, yeah, look, you could say, oh, we're going to get back to the starting position. You know, Cooper's going to come back.
You could say that. I think it's just saying, yeah, that's what's comfortable, but safe isn't, you know, exciting. Like you want to push the bit. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but that's the sort of meta commentary I got a few meta moments in this one actually, but
I loved this. You know, when Doppelkoop is pushing the arm back, and he's going, "Now look, it hurts, doesn't it?" I love it. You can hear his arm cracking. It sounds fantastic.
Also, I like how keep going back to cutting to Ray's reactions throughout all this. It's like at first he's really cocky. He's like, you're gonna get beat, and then as it goes on, he starts to get like, what's happening? What's happening?
They have to hold him back to stop him interfering.
And then eventually, of course, not only does he win the arm wrestling match, he immediately punches Renzo's face into a mush.
Yeah, I didn't realize Doppelkoop was One Punch Man. I'm sorry, it's an anime reference.
I hate you a little bit more every day.
I know.
That said, there's at least one person we know with super strength who might be able to take him on in an arm wrestling match.
There is indeed. More on that later.
She'll bring her shovel. So he wins the fight, and that makes him he's the leader, and they just kind of give him phones and whatever he says, and he shoots Ray in the leg, and he makes everyone else leave, and then he shoots Ray in the leg when Ray tries to run, and they start the conversation. Oh, before they can really get into it, there's this one member who I didn't notice beforehand as well in the crowd. It's all like these bikers with the long hair, and they've all got guns, and all kind of like they all have a look to them, and then there's this one random guy who's like he's got glasses on, he's got like a sort of cardigan, and he's like a little.
He looks like a banker.
Yeah, he looks like a sort of stereotypical nerdy banker, and he just kind of stands there awkwardly, and then he's already made everyone leave the room, Doppelkoop, and then it's when Ray's on the ground, he looks over next to the stairwell, and this guy's just standing there staring, and it's like you're in a room with Doppelkoop, and somehow you're creepier right now. It's
and he just says, "Do you need any money?"
To which Doppelkoop responds, "No." And then the guy just leaves.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was trying to think of, okay, what does this mean in plot? What does this mean from a metaphorical, meta point of view, if there is anything there to read? And I almost took it as, a real artist maybe doesn't need money. But I think there's actually much more on that sort of commentary later in the episode. So I'm not really sure if this particular moment's even trying to hit that home. I wonder if there's a way to read into this a bit more than that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe this is something that might become clearer as we go on.
It might be. I mean, it could be something as simple as Doppelkoop doesn't like accepting help in a way, like he's going out on his own. I don't know, maybe.
I don't know.
It's a bit of a stretch.
Well, it's a bit.
But so let me get interesting here. Not that we weren't interesting before.
Yeah, now we're in the interrogation.
Now we get to the interrogation. We're in some real interesting stuff. So he asks who's trying to kill him, who's paying you to kill me, and he responds, Philip Jeffries.
Well, he says at least that's what they called themselves.
That's what he claims to be. Yes. Interesting that he would even say that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Philip Jeffries means something to us, means something to Doppelkoop. But, if he's not even sure who Philip Jeffries is... I mean, admittedly, maybe he's just assuming, maybe it's an alias.
Yeah, like he says, he never met him, so he never verified it.
Yeah, he only spoke to him over the phone. He makes that clear. And so he's like, Philip Jeffries wants him dead. And of course, I immediately think, okay, he's working for a lodge. I'm not sure which one, though.
That's assuming it is Philip Jeffries. If it is someone using that name... who and why, because whoever it is knows that name has meaning.
Here's the interesting thing. So the next thing he says is, because he asks why he wants them dead, and he says, you've got something inside you that they want. Now, this is where I'm like, okay, right, so is this the Black Lodge wanting Bob back? Is this the White Lodge wanting to contain Bob? And clearly Ray doesn't know that Bob's no longer in there. We saw Bob get taken out.
Yeah.
So,
which means, as far as Philip Jeffries is concerned, Ray completed the job. He killed Cooper at the time.
But that's assuming he's doing something for a lodge. If he's a third party who wants Bob for himself for some reason, then not so much.
That is true.
So, because I'm speculating maybe he's working for a lodge, but at the same time he could be. And that's if even is Philip Jeffries. If this is whoever's claiming to be Philip, if it's the real Philip Jeffries, it's more likely to be working for a lodge, I guess, because he was so entwined with that in Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
And he's been missing all this time. But like the idea that it could be a third party who wants to, kind of like how what's his face, Wyndham Earl wanted to like get access to stuff and wanted to be part of this world. This is like some nut job who wants to like be taken by Bob, so he's looking for him. I don't know. But certainly that I immediately my ears perked up. I was like, oh, Oh, what
Yeah.
is? Oh, interesting. So that's specifically why they want him dead. Because at first I was like, they just want to kill Bob. They want to send him back to the lodge, and certainly someone does. Because then Ray pulls out the ring,
Yes.
the green ring, and of course Dougie had that on. When Dougie went away, the one-armed man had the ring and put it on his little table.
Yep.
And that's relevant because that's about to come up again in a second. And he mentions that someone gave him the ring, someone who was dressed as a guard in the prison. Just
Yes.
before we seen him with Doppelkoop when they were leaving, someone dressed as a guard gave him this ring and told him to put it on Doppelkoop after he'd killed him.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It is very interesting because that's where, like, okay, that almost makes me think that this person, whoever this guard was, right, possibly someone from a lodge, right, they are potentially on the good side of things, because if they give him the ring to put it on, because the ring takes the soul, the essence, to the lodge if the person who's wearing it dies, right?
Right, and the question is, would it take a Doppelkoop or would it take Bob?
I don't know, but clearly, and obviously we suspect the one-armed man, if not him in the prison uniform, he's behind it, because when the ring goes back, because we see it's that really cool shot when it falls and just hits the zebra floor, and then we see the hand, and it looks like the one-armed man's hand and his, like, sort of the jacket he wears. It looks very much like it, and it's the hand placing it on the same table as before. So it's went out, and we knew it was already there. So it definitely implies that he's the one behind that part of it in some way, that he's the one who gave the ring out. Whether or not he was actually the one in the guard, or maybe he possessed the one in the guard.
Unless the guard was Philip Jeffries. Philip Jeffries is working with the one-armed man. Because, like I said, after you kill him, put this on him. So it implies that they know that's the plan.
They do. That said, though, I mean, people from the lodge tend to know a lot of things anyway about what's coming up. So I could see it being separate. I could see it being the same thing, and it is all part of the same side. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what the intentions are of any of these people who are.
It is.
Like, is the person who wants to kill Cooper a good guy or a bad guy?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it could
no
go
idea.
either way. It's like, does he want Bob for a good reason, to trap him, to keep him off, like, away from people, or put him in a lodge? Does he want Bob for something evil, so he can have him, or put him in someone else, or something
Alternatively,
like that?
Do they think he's trapped inside Cooper?
And they want to save him?
Yeah.
Interesting. So of course, Doppelkoop does shoot him, but not before a couple of other little moments. When he tells him to put the ring on, he does specifically ask it to put on the ring, the spirit finger.
Yes.
That we've been hearing about, which maybe just lines up with the idea of the spirit's the one goes to the lodge if they're wearing the ring. Also worth mentioning, the gang is all watching this take place on the big TV. They're all grouped around.
Don't blame them. I'd be nosy too.
As you would be. And it's actually after the ring going on that it cuts back out to the gang. We've already seen them once. It cuts back out again. And there was this great thing where I just noticed some movement because someone's like sort of walking through the crowd. And then I went, oh shit, it's Richard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Which, admittedly, if this is after everything he's done in Twin Peaks, that maybe puts a wrench into the Twin Peaks is all happening later theories.
It does, doesn't it?
But this could be before. This could easily be before.
It could, yeah, that's it. We've not seen enough of him to really place him for a lot of it.
Yeah, it could also be after, because it could be after he's, like, abandoned town. Because I think he said he was skipping town the last time we saw him. Remember when he phoned, what's his name, Chad, to intercept the letter?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
And Sheriff Truman did say he was on the run, and now he's in a different state. I mean, that...
Right, but for this to not line up, there would have to be... So, because at that point there... So that has to be concurrent up to a point, doesn't it? In the timelines, between Twin Peaks and outside.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to leave and then be here, then there has to be almost like a little time jump in Twin Peaks where it gets ahead.
Possibly, but did he flee before we knew it was 2 days until this date?
I feel like it was around the same time.
As I'm having a hard time remembering if it was before or after that. But by the way, let's not get dwelling into that too much right now. But the fact that
Yeah.
Richard's there, the fact that Richard is very intently watching, the fact that he stands out as being creepy amongst all these gang members, is
It's impressive,
very,
isn't it?
he's very snake-like. He's got this. It's the look he's got in his face and his features. He's very, and also we've been speculating that Doppelkoop's his father. Like, so is this him watching his father, maybe for the first time, or maybe he's met him tons of times? It's hard
Yeah,
to tell.
we just don't know.
Is he here looking for him because it's his father and he's not met him before? He's trying to reach out to his dear old evil daddy. I don't know. But still, so big stuff. And the final thing Ray says before he gets shot, Doppelkoop demands to know where Philip Jeffries is, and he says, he said he didn't know at first, and he said, the last I heard, it was a place called the Dutchman's. But he looked into it and it's not a real place. And then he gets shot, and Doppelkoop says, I know what it is. Interesting, he says, I know what it is, not where
it is. Yeah, I call that as well. I thought it was very interesting.
So what is this Dutchman's? Is this the place that we're going to end up in Twin Peaks? Like, is this going to be an entrance to a place, from where Bobby's going to be walking from, the old place from where his dad knew? Like, is that where he's going to end up? Is that the Dutchman's? And I'm only saying that because it's the only new place we have theoretically a location for.
Right, and it would make sense to have our characters converge at some place. Obviously, we had the coordinates with Diane and Gordon and all that. We know they lead to Twin Peaks, but could be more specific.
Oh yeah, because coordinates aren't a whole town. Coordinates are very specific. They're a specific point. In fact, the coordinates in question actually lead somewhere else, and apparently, the landowner for the location had to put out a statement saying, "Stop people keep trespassing on my land because they're looking for these Twin Peaks coordinates." That's quite funny, but
that's a shame.
It's poor farmer, I assume he's a farmer because it's I think it's the middle of farmland.
Right, it's a fair assumption then.
Yeah, he's got acres of something, whatever he does, but so no, but very interesting. The Dutchman's, that's a new place to keep in our minds. And then I've got we spoke about that a little bit. Or the ring fades, falls down into the room. Ray then appears there.
I love the touch of when you hear the ring fall, and then it cuts back to Doppelkoop, and it's like he can hear it.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. Obviously, after the ring's fallen there, we also see Ray's there as well. Not his actual physical body, but his spirit's lying there in the lodge. So. So that was that scene. So then we cut to the Las Vegas Police Department, and this was the two out of the three brothers. There's a little joke about hoping there's not a murder at the weekend because their mother wants them over for dinner.
Fat chance of that happening.
Yeah, we got the laugh again, which might be some foreshadowing for some murdering going on. So,
may well be.
More on that in the next scene actually, but we. Also, I did notice here, again, you could argue it's just a comedy beat or a bit of sort of meta commentary on something, but the idea that there's this commotion in the next room, like there's some perp has gotten loose and has a knife, and they're attacking someone. You hear screams, you hear all this commotion going on, and they just kind of sit there and ignore it. They don't go to help. And then when
it really shows how indifferent they are, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then the third brother comes in. He's not really caring, but he's got results from the fingerprints back.
He does. Pretty much exactly what we expected him to get back.
Yeah, basically. Although I did question. I mean, I suppose they probably retook Doppelkoop's prints at the prison, but part of me did wonder, is this just because Cooper's prints have been on record since before?
Oh, they will have been as a government agent. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, did they take any of the new Coopers, Doppelkoop's prints? They probably did, I imagine, but...
They must have done, because they said that, he escaped prison 2 days ago.
They wouldn't have to be new prints, though.
No, but they would have had to have checked his prints against them.
Oh, sure, but I'm just saying, if they're on record, and they know this is Cooper they've got, or at least they think it's Cooper they've got in the prison. I agree they probably did check his prints, but I'm just saying...
I'm just saying the fact that the computer has told them here in Vegas that this person was here 2 days ago.
No, but they wouldn't have to take his prints to know that he was there. They just add it to his record that already has his prints on file.
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't think it necessarily... I mean, I think they probably did, don't get me wrong. I think 90% chance they took his prints at the prison. But,
I'm a little bit disappointed his prints aren't all just back. I thought they were weird, like backwards, reversed.
Well, maybe that lends credence to what I just said. Like
Maybe.
like they popped up as the Cooper, but they were weird because even saw Tammy looking at them. Like there was something off
Right.
about them. But obviously they've added it to Cooper's file that he is in
Yeah.
custody at this prison. So that'll be why. But they just kind of dismissed this. Like, oh, he's apparently a missing FBI agent, and he just escaped from a prison, and they know he's been there. So
Yeah. So they just disregard it.
yeah, they just throw it out. And that's when it shifts to Anthony shows up, and he's looking for this other cop that he knows, Detective Clark, who apparently also works for Mr. Todd, as does another cop who's like sort of keeping an eye on things as he's watching from a distance. And he's basically there. He wants poison because he needs to murder Dougie, so he wants some poison. And it just kind of sets it up. He's also a bit of a nervous wreck. The cop is like constantly insulting him. He's like, "Oh, you're a chicken shit." Like, yeah, use the poison because that's the chicken shit way of doing it, and all these kind of insults. Pure plot. I don't read into this too much on its own. Next scene is Hutch and Chantel, who are driving. They're on the road. We know they're on their way to Vegas. They're going through Utah at this particular moment in time.
Yeah. Do you know what I want to the very first thing that struck me in this scene?
She's eating.
No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
It was that in that light, Tim Roth looks a lot like Ryan Gosling.
Fair enough.
Just in that really dim light, where it was just his face is like it looked a lot like him.
I did not know.
So it's a big compliment for Tim Roth.
You said that as if Tim Roth was an unattractive man before this.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
Poor Tim Roth. Connor giving him all sorts of shady shit. That's just it's flat out body shaming is what it is. You look good when it's low light. But basically the way I took this scene more than anything else was they're on their way. Like, as much as things are going really well in Vegas, Doppelkoop's like henchmen are on their way to Vegas, and we just had the cops say, "Oh, fat chance of no murders this weekend."
Yeah.
I feel like this is all pointing to something going down now, and I don't actually know how it's going to. I've got two theories here. One, Dougie Cooper is going to once again completely solve this and beat them easily, right? And everything's going to be hunky dory. Or two, this is the time that it'll finally get bad. And I was wondering actually, like, and this maybe is quite dark, but do we think Janie E and Sonny Jim might go down?
It's possible. Do you know, I was also considering, obviously we saw Doppelkoop get shot, and then he kind of gets back up. I was wondering, could we see a similar thing happen with our Cooper?
Is he, because he's split and it's not...
Yeah, do they think he's dead, so they leave?
Maybe. I think the reason why I was jumping to the Sonny Jim and Janie E, partly because they've been showing how happy they are and how much Janie E is starting to really appreciate this new Dougie, and how much Sonny Jim, he's got his new gym and all that. But also just because we talk about how like getting to the lodges, like Garmin Bozia and like all that kind of thing. And I just wonder if like what finally wakes him up is pain and suffering. So he's grown attached to these two people, and then they're going to get killed, and that pain and suffering is what clicks him and wakes him up.
Yeah, I also think maybe he needs the detachment. Like, if let's say he does remember who he is, but would he just abandon a family like that? I don't think our Cooper would. I think he'd feel responsible for Sonny Jim. That
said, though, in terms of the plot for Twin Peaks, like if he's going off to deal with the problem, it doesn't mean he's not going to go back. So it wouldn't necessarily affect the actions that he immediately takes to deal with Doppelkoop and Bob and lodges.
That's true.
But at the same time, you're right. Just in terms of like the happily ever after ending, like not that I expect one of those from Lynch, but if we were going to imagine a world post this season, like would he abandon this wife and this son, even though it's technically not his?
It just doesn't feel like the sort of thing he'd do, does it?
Nah. Because Cooper makes everything better when he's around. That's
exactly.
All the Vegas stuff has really been hitting that home more and more as it's going along.
Yeah.
So, as far as what they're actually talking about in this scene, they're talking about Mormons, and Chantel's complaining that they're weird because they don't drink anything, not even like soda, no liquor, no coffee, anything like that, and Hutch sort of says, Well, yeah, it's not all bad though. They get to like, sure they have to wait for marriage till for sex, but they get to marry like 6 or 10 wives. I think was the exact number he threw out. And then she goes, "It's kind of weird. There's not more of them, then, isn't there? Given they've all got all these wives." And I really don't know what that's saying. I have nothing to read into that. I just thought that was an interesting observation. That why isn't there more of them, despite the fact that like one husband will have like 8 wives, and there's presumably got say maybe 2 or 3 kids per wife.
Yeah,
Should be tons of them.
It's fair logic.
I mean, my like analysis of that would be, well, because they grow up and realize they don't want to be Mormons, so a lot of them, revert back to non-Mormonism.
Non-Mormonism.
It's a technical term. Look it up.
I will do that and report back. Verify your claim. No, I guess for me it was just the idea of expectations. Like she was saying, you have this vague information, you'd expect more, but it's not what you think.
Okay, yeah, I can see what you're saying. So then we cut to Cooper once again. Janie E's dropping him off in the new BMW, and again she seems really happy with him. She's really like loving towards him, pushes him out the car. She also seems very loving towards her new car. She's rubbing the steering wheel and she's like, oh yes, engine's purring, and she's.
To be fair, it's
off.
A very nice car.
Yeah, she's very excited about it. But Anthony's there. He's waiting to ambush him, as it were, and he's like, right, I'll get you a coffee, Dougie, on me in the coffee shop. As we've seen, where you got the cherry pie before, is right in the sort of lobby of this building, and. Before he gets there, though, I did have some thoughts on his entrance into the building. So it's these big glass doors, and Cooper walks into one of them. And then he just sort of stands there, and he sort of touches the glass. It's almost like he's trying to push through, like he's pushing against. And then someone comes along, someone else is coming in, like opens the door and sort of lets him in. And I was just thinking, just some simple little thing, like the idea that, okay, he got through eventually, but I think for him to break through, he has to be able to open the door himself.
Yeah, he's kind of being enabled.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many people just making it easy for him, and he's kind of comfortable, which goes back to, the pain and suffering idea, where there's too many people just helping him, so he's not gonna have that breakthrough moment.
Yeah, it was when he was pushing up against the glass. I thought, it's almost like he's trying to break, as a metaphor for him trying to like get out and wake up. But no, he has to open the door himself and walk through it. I can only show you the door you must enter to, bring up a Matrix quote for the occasion. But so he takes him over to the coffee shop and they're sitting there. It's all awkward. And again, Anthony's sitting being all nervous. It's great stuff. And of course, they get the coffees come, and Cooper notices the cherry pie over on the counter, and he gets up and he walks over and he just stares at it. And the girl who works there is like, "Oh, do you want some cherry pie?" Cherry pie. Go and enjoy your coffee. I'll bring it over to you. He's like, coffee? He turns around, crack me up. But he comes over behind Anthony, who of course is just while he's been away, he's been slipping the poison into his coffee. And if there's a way to kill Cooper, let's be honest, slipping something into the coffee is probably the
easiest way,
the best way of doing it. But Cooper notices something on his he notices like these white specks on Anthony's jacket.
Yeah.
And it distracts him, and he starts kind of like, basically he's playing with them, but it's almost like, from Anthony's perspective, like he's almost getting a massage. He's sort of got his hands on his shoulders and he's kind of like feeling it. And Anthony's like getting really emotional and nervous. He's like, coffee's there, Dougie. He's getting really upset, and you can tell it's really hitting him. And then eventually he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And he grabs a coffee and he runs into the bathroom. And there's that funny joke where the guy's in there peeing. He's like, that bad, huh? And it's the whole scene's played out very well, and it. Do we cut straight to? We don't cut straight to the scene where all this is sort of brought up.
No, because we cut back to them outside, and Cooper's there eating his pie on his red chair.
Yeah, he's eating his pie. He's drinking his coffee. He's looking over at Anthony, who's like, he's just, I'm sorry, Dougie.
And he's like, I don't care. I just want my pie.
Yeah, he's in the pie. But once again, Dougie has averted death at another, at any cost. So we cut to the double R briefly, and interestingly, I thought there was a nice little connective tissue here because cherry pie is brought up in this scene.
Right,
In fact,
I noticed that as well.
cherry pie is brought up several times in this episode. In fact, there's another scene later on that talks about cherry pie in depth. So double R, and this is a Shelley scene. Shelley gets a call from Becky. Becky's worried that Shitty Steve has been missing for 2 days, and she's all upset about it. She's bubbling over the phone, and Shelley gets the idea. Why don't I invite you down? Come down to the double R, and I'll serve you up a piece of cherry pie with some ice cream and some whipped cream, and
Sounds very good.
find some time to talk. I mean, I don't like cherry pie, to be fair.
But just the sound of it is tempting, isn't it?
I love cream.
Yeah.
I love cream on cakes, though. Like, if you offer me a bit of pie or cake with cream, I'm probably going to be up for it.
Well, that's it. Like here, it's not about cherry pie specifically, but the idea of just you hear it all pie, ice cream, cream. It's like, oh, this sounds good.
Yeah. So, and it's funny. This is just a little scene, and there's not a whole lot to it. But I don't even see a follow up. Like I was expecting a scene at some point with with Becky in the diner, or actually having the conversation that they said they were going to have, and it never really quite happened. But I do think it shows Shelley being a pretty decent mother, having a good idea, because as soon as she suggests it, Becky does kind of stop crying, and she's like, oh, that does sound really good, and she smiles, and it's maybe the most genuinely happy we've seen Becky, because she's either been abused, high, or like really upset about things.
Yes.
That's the kind of who Becky is. So yeah, there's the thing. So we cut back to Lucky 7, and Anthony's in Bushnell's office, and he's confessing. He's confessing everything, and there's a couple of fantastic Cooper Dougie moments here, where he just, it's like he says, "I want to confess," and then Cooper goes, "Confess," and he's like, "I will, Dougie, I will." And he starts confessing, and then later on he's like, "I need to thank Dougie." He's like, "Thank Dougie." Thank you. It's like really good stuff. It's really funny stuff. And again, like he's confessing all this stuff, and he's talking about how he doesn't want to live like this. He's not slept in weeks. He doesn't want to be this person. And Dougie like made him realize this, and he wants to, he's willing to testify. He's willing to do the right thing. And again, I feel this is another example of Cooper's improved this person's life. He's made him see the error of his ways, and he's doing the right thing. He stopped him from becoming a killer. He was almost a murderer, and he stopped him from doing that.
Yeah, and Bushnell also says, like, when I found out about this, I lost all respect for you, and I had such contempt. But with you confessing now, that's gone down a bit. He kind of respects him a bit more, even though he did the things. He respects that he confessed. Yeah.
So once again, and so both of them, the lives have been improved. Their relationship, at least seems like it can be mended now. It's on the path to something better. Like, a lot of things here where, again, it's just this Cooper making everyone around him better, improving their lives. Yeah. He's the light that shines their way, if you will. In fact, I think the words I wrote down is Anthony finally wants to repent.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, he wants to repent. So
yeah, and he says, we'll get you to testify against Todd.
Yeah, in fact, he even says the phrase Dougie saved my life. That specific phrase stuck out to me. Like, he saved my life. So you can't really put it in. He also he sort of stumbles into the two cops as well. He's like, oh yeah, and the two cops. He's like, he knows about them too. Oh, they're worse than Mr. Todd. I mean, are they? We'll see. If it even comes up. I imagine that maybe that's what'll happen. Is we'll end up with this massive shootout because the assassins will come for Dougie. We'll have the cops coming for Anthony, and then it'll be like this. And then the Mitchum brothers will be there to protect them, and it'll be this weird.
And we'll have the three brothers just stood by the side drinking coffee.
Yeah, they won't even care. Oh dear. Yeah, so that's that scene, and then we go back to the double R.
Yes.
Nighttime scene, and Bobby comes in. He wants his dinner. He orders something to eat, and he's looking around. He's looking for Shelley, and you can kind of tell he's worried. He wants to see Shelley. He's clearly still got feelings for her. I mean, we knew that anyway from his previous interactions with her, but. Yeah. But he runs into Norma, who's still sitting at that one damn table doing her goddamn numbers. But also Big Ed.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, Big Ed. And it's like,
finally.
Nice to see him. But do you know what I liked about this, though? Cause, Bobby's... Like, he asked where Shelley is, and he's like, she already went home. And he's had a spot. He's like, oh, come sit with us, Bobby. Come, have your dinner with us. And Ed's like, no, I don't know the sense in sitting eating alone. Like, come with us. And he sits down, and it's this really sweet moment where three original Peaks characters are sitting in their, it's like, oh, what happened? And we'll get to what he said in a minute because I've got thoughts. But it's this kind of sweet thing, and it's funny that the tone of the scene completely changes when this new person comes in and interrupts everything. This Walter comes in, and all of a sudden it's not that sweet anymore. But before, like up until that point, it feels really, Ed and Norm are sitting there, and even if they're not been a couple right now, because Bobby asks, "Oh, do you want me to leave you alone?" And you two can. It's like, "Oh, nothing's happening, Bobby. You're fine."
But that's as soon as Walter comes in, Bobby and Ed leave the table, and they just feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And even the way Big Ed's like watching from afar, like he keeps looking over, and like you can tell he's concerned. He cares about what's going on, and so we'll talk about that in a wee second when we get to. But so they asked Bobby, "Oh, so what's new? What's up? What's been happening?" And he said, "Oh, we found some stuff belonging to my dad today." And I'm like, "Today?"
Yeah. So this hasn't moved.
But did he see that stuff they found? Was that what about that nighttime scene in the diner though, when he was with Shelley and the shootout happened? I could have sworn that was after they found that stuff, but I may be remembering it wrong. It may have been the episode.
See, if you'd asked me, I'd have said the same, but might be memory playing tricks.
I think that was after they found that stuff.
Is this some mistakes in the edits?
I don't know if it's a mistake. Maybe he found more stuff that he doesn't mean, or like maybe it's stuff that we don't know about really, but it doesn't seem like it. It's almost it almost feels really. But think about this though, it's almost the exact same complaint with the earlier scene with the Sonny Jim catch.
Yeah,
it's the exact same thing where it feels like, well, maybe he's talking about another night or another day where he found some more stuff, but it doesn't seem like it should be. And that's too specific. There's no way that's a mistake. The fact that there's two things like that in this same episode that are the exact same kind of flaw, if you will.
Yeah.
That's intentional. That's a pattern.
Yeah, you're right. One's a mistake. Two, you can't believe two mistakes would slip through like that.
I don't think mistakes slip through with Lynch.
No. I could buy one small one, especially when it was just the scene with Sonny Jim, the catch. I could buy that slip through into the wrong place.
I mean, is there a point here where some of this stuff is just genuinely taking place out of order?
Yeah.
And
if things are out of order, if it's telling us now that some of these things aren't in the order we've seen them, what else isn't?
That's beg the question.
Like you mentioned, the car driving in, which we assumed was Doppelkoop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of out of order where we're seeing him in this episode, assuming that is him.
Assuming that's him, yeah. But at least with that stuff, we thought the Twin Peaks stuff was taking place at a later date anyway, so that made sense.
But then we had the Richard in the room earlier. It's like, okay,
yeah, that. But again, that's like we don't know if that's before or after, so that doesn't necessarily throw a wrench in it. But again, it feels like it's probably
just
after.
Another piece that's adding it to this.
But it definitely at this point now, it feels like there's definitely something with the structure. Like, he's definitely playing with the order of things in some way. I don't think we have enough information yet to say what it is, but there's definitely something going on.
It does feel that way. I'm not sure why, but something's not right. Because I got this. It's too specific to tell us today, because it doesn't need to. It doesn't say today.
Which is again a sign that this isn't a mistake. It's a very specific line of dialogue. We found that stuff today. He could have just said, "Oh, we found this stuff that my dad had," and that'd have been the end of the sentence, and we would never have even questioned it.
No, exactly.
So interesting. Unless Bobby, unless it's a mistake not a mistake, but unless it's just Bobby like, oh, nothing interesting happened today, so I'll tell them what we found like 2 days ago.
Maybe, but it sounds like he's having a catch up with them. Like he hasn't sat down and talked to them properly for a while.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, well, as much as he says today, he doesn't really mean today. He's just sort of meaning generally this is what's been going on.
Maybe. Still feels a strange, like, if he'd just said, oh, we found this stuff from my dad, that would have had, if it hadn't been today, that would have had as much impact as, oh, we found this stuff from my dad today. Today feels very specific.
Unless the small chance that they've already went up and looked, and they found more stuff, and we've not seen that yet.
I guess. It's.
But that'd be weird.
That would be weird. Because then I feel like we would have to jump back in time to show us that.
we would, but maybe that's when intercepts with like other stuff coming to Twin Peaks. So then maybe that's when we finally realize, oh, this stuff's all been out of order because they're coming in when this is happening, when X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z is not happened yet. But uh, maybe we are reading too much into it. It could be a simple case of again, two of these very similar things in the same episode feels intentional. But, what if it was a simple case of he wanted to move things around and it's like, well, I'll just live with that line feeling kind of weird. It doesn't feel very Lynch to do that, but like maybe when we get to the end, if there's more on this, if there's no more that kind of explains this, then maybe that's just kind of what we'd say. And that's not a big deal. Like, in the grand scheme of things, who cares? One line of dialogue's a bit off. But
Right.
at least right now we're questioning it and saying, okay, what does that mean?
Exactly. There's too many things that make us question it to ignore it.
There. Yeah, I wrote a lot of question marks and exclamation points after the word today in my notes there. So Walter comes in. Walter's a businessman who turns out he's running the franchise of the Double R for Nora. She's got 5 restaurants, including this one, around the state.
And the rest of them are Norman's Double R, not just the Double R.
Yeah, that's brought up, along with the fact that 3 of them are doing really well. They're profiting well, and the original one here in Twin Peaks is the one of the 2 that aren't. And he explains that basically she's spending too much on. I mean, he specifically says pies. I don't know if it's specifically just the pies, but at least what they're using here is the cherry pie as the example.
Yeah.
You're spending too much on pies and not charging enough, and she brings up, but what about all those other restaurants? Like, I've heard that people don't like those pies as much. They're just not as good. Like, people have had them here say, no, this one's better. And I think the meta commentary here is quite easy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, the knockoff isn't real. Like, the original thing that's true and like what the intention was, but the idea of like, it's kind of the idea of like if Lynch had said, here's Studio, you go and find someone else to make a new Twin Peaks season, like, it wouldn't be as good.
Right, and there's the line that he says about tweaking the formula for profitability, and that's like the whole idea of by committee. We'll tweak things because this is what people like, and it's like, yeah, but it's not the same anymore, is it? You can tell it's different.
Yeah, just like if he'd accepted the 9-episode deal originally before fighting for more, it's I mean, it's very obvious, but I did appreciate this commentary. It was, it was very to the point, and it was also nice because it's the first time Norma, beyond stuff relating to Shelley, where she's had a nice little character beat. This is kind of the first time, okay, she's got her own thing where she's dealing with her own stuff.
Yeah, and it finally makes sense why she's always sitting there doing numbers, because she's answering to a board.
I mean, I don't know if it explains how often she's sitting there doing numbers, but yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, it feels like he's doing more numbers, so she should be doing less.
Well, she's doing the other stores, I think. He's got the numbers from all the other stores, is what it is. But I think they're all doing their own in the store and then sending them to him.
Okay. I'll accept that. Not that I really care to explain why she's always sitting there doing numbers, but it feels like she's always sitting at that same damn table.
It does, yeah.
So the conversation goes on. Obviously, when he first came in, he gave her a kiss that was kind of suggestive, but not like. You get the impression that he's trying to kindle a relationship, and she's kind of like, she's accepted a date at least because they're on for dinner that night, but it's not gotten serious yet. And I was sort of yelling out, you know what, Norma, he's using you to be successful because he's running your franchise. This is just Hank again, but he's wearing a better suit.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
I think that's kind of the whole message of a lot of the show. A lot of our audience, they're still kind of going through the same sort of problems, aren't they? Like, Shelley's doing the same thing again.
Yeah, and Becky's inherited this from both her mother and her surrogate grandmother. Like, she's doing similar things. And it's a real shame. You feel kind of bad. And you see Ed watch you from a distance, and you're kind of like, no. But hey. Also, I referred to the pies at the other stores as knockoffs. Just because...
It's important.
It's a good word. But yes, and again, I think the obvious other thing here is that she doesn't want to sell out, and like that's why her name's not in this one, because this is you knew it as this. I'm not going to change it.
And she keeps talking about, we had a deal. This was the deal. I don't want to change that. And she doesn't want to compromise on the original terms.
And he also says we should change the name of this one because you're the face of the franchise, and I thought that was an interesting line. You're the face of the franchise. And it's almost like a commentary of like, people saying to like David Lynch, "Oh, we need Cooper back for all this season because he's the
face of the franchise." Yeah,
and she's like, "But no, that was never the intention.
that's not the point of this. Yeah.
It's again a lot of meta commentary going on, and I thought that was fun stuff. So then we cut to Nadine, and I worried for a little second we were going to have another Doctor Amp.
I tuned out for about 12 seconds at the start of this scene. I was like, oh god.
I was worried I was just going to see his show again, but luckily she started typing. She was doing other things, and then we see the truck pull up outside, and it's Jacoby, it's Doctor Amp. He's seen the shovel in the window, so he has to come in and talk to her. But I appreciated all this because it's different. It's not the same her watching him. And
right.
I get the impression as well that she's like the only one watching his stupid podcast thing, because like he's such a nut job. A lovable nut job, but a nut job nonetheless. So she comes out. She's like, "Oh, it's you, Jacoby. Can I call you Doctor Amp?" And it's very, very sweet. And they talk about the shovel on the display. And I love that after all these years, 25 years, right? 25 years, she's got a store where the sign says "Silent Drape Runners," and still she feels the need to tell him that these drapes are completely silent.
Yeah. She's so obsessed.
They talk about some other stuff as well. They talk about the last time they seen each other. She dropped a potato.
Yeah, it was 7 years ago. It was in the store.
Yeah, and there was a storm that night. There was a big storm.
Yeah, and then she seemed to go like, oh, like she remembered.
Yeah, like something important might have happened 7 years ago. I wonder if that lines up with anything that we'll maybe hear about.
Yeah, I don't know. Like until he said, "Oh, there was a storm that night," she was really blank, and then she's kind of like, "Oh, like there was recognition."
Yeah. Honestly, I think maybe that's seen something for later as well, but I think the main purpose of this scene for me was it was showing that some of the older characters are actually still nice people. They're still okay. Like the younger generation, we kept talking about how they're more corrupt and, you know, Becky's screwed. And as much as, sure, Norm is kind of slipping into things, but, you know, when it was the old characters, when it was Bobby, Ed, and Norma, they were quite happy, and it felt pleasant. It felt like a sweet scene until this new character came in, and it almost felt like, yeah, the old guard of Twin Peaks are still kind of their old selves, for, you know, to a fault in some cases.
Yeah, for better or worse.
Yeah, but they're still them, and it's these all these new people who have filled the town up, because we've spoken about how the population seems much bigger than it used to. You know, the Roadhouse is much fuller. I mean, more people here, you know, old James singing his song, and for me, this was like, no, these people are still nice, and they're allies of each other. And I mean, they're talking about actually fighting some stupid war with their shovels and whatnot, but like they care about each other. And as much as they're kind of kooky old people, they're kind of delirious and have all these weird beliefs and whatnot, there's a sweetness and a genuine kind of, you know, camaraderie there. That's sort of old school Twin Peaks, and I appreciate that in and of itself. But just in terms of, again, this idea that Peaks needs saving, but there's still a few people there who are still their old selves, and I thought that was sweet. So that was that, and then we got to a very interesting scene where I have a lot of notes written down, despite the fact that the scene is basically just Sarah Palmer needing to go refill her booze.
Yes.
But there's a couple of things that I watched this twice again as I've been doing with these, and the first time through I wasn't really paying attention to the TV as much. But I knew, right, okay, the second view I'm going to listen very intently to what the TV is saying.
Yeah, I got some of what it was saying. I didn't catch everything.
Did you notice, though, something very specific about it?
I mean, obviously, it's on a loop.
It's on a loop, yeah, that was the main thing.
Yeah, it's this bit of a boxing match that's on a loop. First
things first, it's a really old boxing match. It's not present-day boxing match. And I was actually I wonder if Bushnell's one of the
I thought one of the
fighters. Well. So I thought that. Also, here's something. Whenever was either the bell or there was like a horn in the arena in the boxing match, and it would you know, ding ding ding. It would always be in bursts of 3.
Yeah.
That sounded like it was kind of distorted, but it sounded a lot like it was saying Bob Bob Bob. And that may sound crazy, but go back and listen to it. I swear it was making that kind of noise.
Okay, I will have to go back and watch that because.
So yeah, it's boxing match, and the bell horn sounds like Bob, Bob, Bob. Every time it restarts a loop, there's like a static noise.
Yeah, it's okay. Little clicking sound.
Yeah, but obviously there's some staticky in there as well. So again, kind of like the electrical hum, kind of feeding into that whole idea of energy and all the rest of it. And if pain and suffering are what like gives them strength, I'm pretty sure Sarah Palmer just is nothing but pain and suffering and has been for a long time.
She's a 3-course meal.
Yeah, and she's in there, and obviously we're feeling like something like she's sensing something that's building. When we saw the house last episode, it felt very ominous. The fan was spinning, all that stuff. And as much as she doesn't really do anything in here except sit and watch this TV and then get kind of annoyed that it's on a loop and leaves, like it's very ominous. It feels like it's hinting at stuff. And of course you have the static, you have the bob bob bob, and I'm getting to what it said in a minute, but
yeah,
all this stuff felt very ominous to me.
Yeah, definitely. The whole scene just feels like because obviously you can watch this and go, nothing happens, but it has a tone.
Yeah, it really does. So what was it saying? What was the obviously it was the commentators for the boxing match that were speaking. I wrote down pretty much. I might have paraphrased one or two small bits, but I've got it all written down, all of it. And this is the loop that plays. Oh, the right hand catches the big guy by the ear, and he finally goes down, hangs on to the ropes. Oh, the gentleman asks if he's okay. Looks round number 1 and 2 underway. Now it's a boxing match again. I'm sure there's more meaning to this than what I can glean from it, but the main parts I took from this is someone got knocked down, they were on the rope, someone asked if they were okay, he got back up, and now it's a fight again.
Yeah, that's the bits I had as well.
That was the bit I was like, okay. And I don't think it takes a big imagination to then say, so Doppelkoop trapped Cooper, it put him down.
Yeah, Cooper's on the ropes.
He's on the ropes, but I almost wonder if like before he like wakes up, if someone asks him if he's okay. That'd be a really nice callback to this. If that's that specific, that someone says, "Are you okay?" and that's the moment he like. Do you know, I really can't wait for McLachlan's acting for this. I really can't.
No.
I can't. I'm trying to imagine in my head.
I need the smile.
Him going from Dougie face to Cooper face, and I can see him doing it in my head. And I don't know if he's going to smile first, or if it's going to be more determination first. Like he realised like where he is and what he's been put through, and it's time to go.
I think even for me, I think he'll smile first. Just he'll smile at, I'm okay, I'm here, I'm alive.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I can see it.
Because he's a very positive, optimistic person like that. And then he'll be like, right, now let's on with the job.
Although I wonder if maybe he doesn't at first. I mean, that may be how it goes down, but I'm wondering what if it doesn't at first. What if he is kind of angry? But he has
what if he saves the smile till he's won?
But he has to. But that's the thing. He has to regain his upbeat self to win. Like, because he realizes that if he just keeps down the angry path, he's already lost basically. Because that's going down the dark path that Doppelkoop's already went down essentially. So
yeah.
But no, fascinating stuff.
No, I do think that scene is one that easily people could go, oh, nothing happens, it's boring. But
yeah.
Oh man, if you listen to honestly, what's on the TV.
Honestly, it may be my favourite scene of the episode. It was the one. I mean, it's debatable. I mean, obviously there's our contenders, but I sat up and went, oh, what? Because obviously at first I heard the dying, I heard the static noise, and then it was when I noticed it was on a loop. I'm like, oh, what's on a loop? But then of course, when was the last time you heard something on a loop? It was, this is the water, and this is the well.
Yeah.
Drink deep and descend. The horse is the white of the eye. And
obviously playing into the idea that maybe that was Sarah Palmer. Maybe she's obsessed with things on a loop. She's, like, because she's just sitting there and this is on a loop, like it's coming back to her for whatever reason. And
again, it's broadcast. It's something.
It is broadcast.
Radio now TV. Yeah.
And I mean, I can't be saying, but it's a loop like that. You've got to think it's analog broadcast, not digital.
Which is weird. Like, I mean,
it is strange.
I mean, most places don't even have analog broadcasts anymore.
No, but it looked more like an analog broadcast because with the loop, the static, it felt more like an analog broadcast to me.
It did. Which, by the way, did you notice the size of this TV?
Yeah, it's a bit big.
It was. I just thought it was funny. We had that really massive TV in the layer, and then this was like. I mean, I don't know, this wasn't as stupidly big, but
it was big for one person in that room sitting that close.
Yeah, it looked like it was like 70, 80 inches.
Yeah.
It was in the wide shot, because when it's just a shot of TV, you didn't really notice how big it was. But it was when it was the wide shot and you could see the edge of it compared to her. It was like, oh shit, that's like 5 foot tall. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. For the room, it was quite big.
Yeah. I mean, I would say no to a TV that size, but I just thought that was another interesting.
Yeah, and I think it is strange because Sarah Palmer doesn't seem the type of person who cares about having a big TV.
Especially if she's watching these shitty old boxing matches, you'd think, no, a little CRT would probably do her.
That's more what you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a really old thing.
And I'm thinking about it now. Like, so if I have the big TV in the I don't know what the gang's called, but
Gang HQ.
Yeah.
HQ.
Yeah, in Montana, right?
Yeah.
And then you have her having this big TV, and then I'm like, the only other time I can think of a screen this season really is in episode 8 with the projector with the giant, and I don't think it's necessarily saying they mean it. I just think it's a thematic thing of people watching the events unfold.
There's also in the glass box.
Cameras. You're right. Yeah.
But again, watching things unfold, like just sitting and waiting for things to happen.
And all this kind of makes sense thematically when you think about it, because, like, if we're talking about the beings using energy and energy being used to traverse, what is broadcast, what is video and audio if not just manipulation of energy, really?
Right, of course.
So, like, it all kind of ties in thematically in a really fun way. So that's nice. Yeah, it was a great scene.
I agree, but I feel like people will be
people
like,
will, but there was a lot of good foreshadowing in this.
Yeah.
And then you compare it to the looping of the episode 8. Oh, genius stuff here. Alright, so then we cut to Audrey. And much like the Jacoby scene, I sort of went, oh no. Don't do this. Don't do this to me.
How are we at a point where the second time we've seen Audrey in this show and we're like, ugh. How did that happen?
Let me counter that though with, by the end of the second scene with Audrey, I went, last week's makes more sense to me now. Or not more sense, but
have more purpose.
More purpose and is more interesting. And now at the end of this scene, I'm looking forward to more scenes with Audrey.
Yeah.
That is a flip. That is a hell of a flip. And
definitely.
Obviously,
I feel like these two scenes should have been in the same episode.
Potentially, yeah. Potentially. Maybe I have the other one at the start of an episode and then have this at the end.
It feels like mid and an end episode rather than two separate episodes to me. So then you wouldn't have that feeling over a week.
But I think that's intentional, though. I think Lynch wanted us to have that scene, and it'll be like, what the hell was that? What was the purpose of that? And there's, and we saw it on the internet. Everyone was pissed off. Everyone thought, oh, but we waited all season for Audrey, and that's what we get. And we gave him the benefit of the doubt to a point. We said, okay, it wasn't, it was disappointing.
We didn't enjoy it at the time, but we acknowledged that it might be improved.
I mean, I'd have said probably be improved. I expect it from him. And sure enough, now admittedly we don't have the full picture yet, but this scene, it already has me going, oh, this means more than what it just was on the surface last week. There's more to it. And I have like speculation here now as to what's going on with her, and it's not at all about the names she was saying, even though they might represent something. Like, so I'll break into it. So she's still there. She's got her coat off, but she's still wearing the same clothes. So it very much feels like the same night as the last episode, which is, that's maybe even implies that some stuff in Twin Peaks isn't
running as fast as everywhere else.
Yeah, it definitely, these Audrey scenes are both in the same night. They absolutely are. There's not
certainly, because there's the bit where he says, "Oh, shouldn't you be going to the Roadhouse to look for Billy?" So implies it's not long after we saw the last scene.
Yes, and she's still wearing the same clothes. And she's still saying, "Oh, what did she say?" So that's how we start. We start with how we ended last week, where she's saying, "What did she say?" You're not going to tell me what she said on the phone. Tell me what she said. Yep. That's how we start. And then she gets kind of emotional. And again, I feel like I'm somewhere else and that I'm somebody else.
Yeah. Nah.
And of course, immediately we're like, "Oh my god, that sounds like Cooper." Like it sounds like Cooper stuff. It sounds like, or maybe even she's like Jerry, where she's feeling someone else.
Stuff that we've been going on about.
Right. So you have that right away, and then she says, "I'm not sure who I am, but I'm not me."
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, a lot of people said from last week that, oh, it's kind of shit. She's like this. It feels like she's became kind of a bitch. Like she's not, and it's like, well, she's kind of bringing this up. It's like she's kind of aware she's not really who she's supposed to be. Um, and then things get really interesting. She's like, she doesn't remember that she wanted to go out to the roadhouse. And then when Charlie reminds her, you wanted to go to the roadhouse to see if Billy was there, she's like, oh yeah, where's the roadhouse? She can't remember
Yeah.
where the roadhouse is.
It's very strange.
And I had two things immediately spring to mind as possibilities. This scene, and the way she's been with Charlie, I'm like, is this actually not her husband? Is he just saying that to make it feel easier? But he's actually like a therapist, and this is like some sort of therapy because she's like this, whatever this
Yeah.
is. And then I had the wackier idea, like, is she still in a coma? And this is all in her head.
Okay.
And part of why I said I was still sort of thinking that is after that in the scene, he says to her, "You're going to stop playing games, or do I have to end your story too?" Which I thought was very intimidating. So you know what? Say it's not a coma, if it's real and they're actually in a house, and like that sounds intimidating. Like he's controlling her in some way.
It's very threatening, isn't it?
Yeah. And then she says, "What story is that? Is that the story of the little girl who lives down the lane?"
Hmm.
I have no idea what that means, but it sounds good. And I'm sure it has meaning that I can't glean yet, but it sounds good. Oh. Mid scene. I usually try and split the pages at the end of a scene, but unfortunately,
Sometimes it just runs longer than you expect.
it does. And then she's like, it's like she's like of two minds, because she says, "I want to stay and I want to go. I want to do both." And that's when I was starting to feel like, is she trapped? Like, whether it's a coma or whether it's real life, right? It feels like she's trapped and she can't leave, which is why I was kind of leaning towards maybe coma, because it's like, this is a representation to her and she's not really sure what's going on.
Right.
She's forgetting things and all these kind of things. And it seems like, okay, she wants to leave, so let's go to the roadhouse. She puts on her coat in the last episode there, we need to go. And then this one, it's like, oh yeah, I was going to the roadhouse, I should leave. It kind of reminds me of like a dreamlike state where you're trying to do something, but for some reason you keep not doing it.
Yeah, and it plays into this idea, like in a dream where you don't really know how you get places, you're just there. And it feels like this scene, it just starts almost where we picked up last time, but it's definitely not right where we picked up last time.
Yeah, it's a different room. So it's in the living room this time.
Right, exactly. But it's almost exactly the same as what we ended on.
Yeah, so, and that's, I don't know, if not a coma, is this just a dream, perhaps, of Audrey's? Or she is in a coma, and but all of a sudden, like last week, because now I'm thinking about all these names, and I'm like, and admittedly, he did bring up a truck being taken, and maybe that was like a red herring to make us think it was, because we had a truck being stolen before.
I mean, there's also, don't forget, people, like, there's the thing, like, when people are in comas, they can still hear things and process things.
Yeah, maybe she heard of something.
People, they wouldn't feel the need to not talk around her if she's in a coma. People might just mention things. These sorts of things would probably be town gossip. Billy going missing is probably town gossip.
And I mean, Ben never. I mean, he mentioned that Rich never had a father. He never mentioned anything about a mother, but like, did he technically not have a mother either because his mother was,
Yeah, and it would make sense as like maybe he was raised by the grandparents.
Yeah. So I think that's fascinating, and then like it makes me wonder about all those names last week. Billy and Tina and.
Just to go back on that point, it makes it, obviously Truman went to Ben, he didn't go to Audrey to say your son has done this.
Yeah, which I think to us at the time implied she didn't live there. I think at the time that was maybe the obvious assumption to make, is she didn't live in Twin Peaks anymore, so that he went to the closest living relative that he could talk to.
Yeah, and also I was going, okay, he wanted Ben to pay for the treatment. He wanted to try and get that.
You justified it. You justified it to yourself.
Right, exactly, but why wouldn't he go to Audrey? Why wouldn't he tell her?
If she's in Twin Peaks, yeah.
Which this seems to allude that she is.
Interesting stuff. But like I say, the names, Tina and... I can't remember the third name, because there was the one who told her about Tina being the last one to see Billy, but all these names, like, who do they represent? If they aren't real, do they represent people that we know?
Yeah.
Like, if she's, like, he can't...
So Billy is presumably Cooper.
Possibly,
he's the one that's missing.
But like, who she tried to her and Tina don't get along, and like he phones Tina, and if her husband's there, she can't speak. Yeah. And and I'm like, who does that possibly relate to? And I'm like, is Tina representing Annie because that was the second love interest? Maybe that's
Right.
a bit of a stretch.
I don't know. Obviously, if Billy is Cooper, that's the only logical one I can get to straight off because someone's missing.
Yeah.
Then the person, the last one to see him alive would be Major Briggs. And that was the last person who saw him. That was what she was told, right?
Was it Briggs?
No, but we know the last person that saw Cooper before he left Twin Peaks was Briggs. They had that meeting.
Oh, but that wasn't Cooper though. That the last person to see Cooper was
Right.
Harry.
Cooper. Yeah, you're right. Cooper was Harry.
Before he went into the lodge.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
But it feels weird to have Tina represent Harry.
It does.
I would imagine it would be because Annie was in the lodge with him, so she's seen him last technically.
Yeah, and like you say, they don't get along, so it makes it they had a bit of a rivalry.
Even though they never really interacted in the original show.
But just in the sense of a rivalry over Cooper in that sense.
But then, who's the husband then?
I don't know.
But then again, wasn't the whole thing at the end of season 2 about he was picking his queen?
Wyndham Earl was, yeah.
Yeah, so is Wyndham Earl the husband? If he's there, she can't talk.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense, does it, to bring Wyndham Earl into this?
It doesn't. That feels like a rabbit hole. I still like the idea that these names represent someone. I just can't quite place who they actually represent.
Yeah, same.
And then again, this is all assuming that she's in a coma, and this is all a dream in her head.
Which feels like it's got a reasonable shot of that being the case.
Yeah, I feel like this scene kind of gave us that idea. The final thing of interest she said before the end of the scene is she was visibly upset, and she says it's like Ghostwood here.
Yeah.
Do we know Ghostwood? Is Ghostwood a thing?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm just going to Google Ghostwood Twin Peaks
just in case.
Just in case it's something we forgot about.
Yeah, I don't recall it.
So apologies for the live fact checking. Oh wait, we do have something. Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. The Ghostwood development project was a plan originally spearheaded by Benjamin Horne. Oh yeah, the Ghostwood National Forest. He was trying to save the forest to
that was that.
Get the land back and the
I think we were kind of back. Yeah.
But that never meant a whole lot.
At the time, no, it was just that was his plan. Yeah.
But it's like Ghostwood in here.
So she's saying it's like like this plan, this subterfuge, cover up. That's kind of what that was, wasn't it? It was a public front to hide your own means, almost.
Yeah, is that what? Yes, that's what she means. It's almost like everything they're talking about is not really what it's about, and she's acknowledging that.
Which would go into this whole thing. Like none of this is real. What she's seeing, none of it's actually what it is. It's all just a public face, a perception. So that would really reinforce the coma and all those names representing other people.
Yeah, and of course the fact that we actually have a Billy it was at least presented as missing at one point in the real show. Again, either a red herring or, like you say, she's overheard something and people in comas pick things up.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It suddenly makes her scenes far more fascinating. And I kind of respect holding it off until this far in, because if it is a coma and we find that out, towards the end of the season, and her waking up's maybe a thing in the finale or whatever, like this would have been this would have been like worse than Dr. Amp if we'd had this all unless there was more to do with it, unless Lynch had some grand idea for all these
but if we'd been
teasing,
like half a scene here, half a scene there.
Yeah, if we'd having Audrey scenes every other episode since the start, this would have felt drawn out. So I actually kind of respect that it's not that even this late in we're getting new ideas and new interesting, because we never got any FBI scenes this week, so we focused on a lot of other stuff, and here we are. We never ate Cooper last week either, admittedly. So I guess this episode we got a lot of Cooper and we got a lot of Peaks and Bobby and stuff. Then we go to the Roadhouse, which we already spoke about. James, you and I, a lady friend who I assume already knows him, very emotionally affected by it. I think her name might be Renee. I caught her Renee in the credits, but I mean, I'm just guessing, really. But we had one more scene because we actually. This was the weird thing about this scene is that it finished the performance and then cut to
Yeah,
another
because we
scene.
had to. Lynch wanted to make sure everyone watched that whole damn song. Didn't want anyone going, "Oh, credits are here. I can turn it off."
And we cut to Big Ed's gas farm, and Big Ed is just sitting there and he's drinking some soup. He's got some to-go soup from the double R. You see the logo on the cup, and I'll let point out here. Did you notice this thing on his desk?
On his desk, no.
There was like a bear thing. I don't know if it was like a key holder or something like that, or if it was just an ornament. But
Right.
it was a bear thing. But there was a little slogan at the bottom, which I think again is a little meta message from Lynch to the fans. It said, "Bear with me."
Very good.
But he's sitting drinking soup on his own. It's very quiet. There's no music. It's very, you feel the loneliness of it, and I think it actually parallels nicely because earlier on in the episode he said to Bobby, "Oh, there's no sense in eating alone," and he makes sure Bobby has someone to eat with, and then we see him here eating his soup, just sort of on his own.
Alone. Yeah. It's dead silent because we keep seeing him look out the window and nothing's out there. I mean, you can see cars going past on the road, but there's no one in sight.
Yeah, you hear the odd car every once in a while. And I think, again, it's this idea of this sadness in Twin Peaks, that even though he's still a good person and he's still friendly with the other people when he's around them, there is this sadness. And obviously, he clearly still has feelings for Norma. Like, he obviously does. Is he still with Nadine? I'm not sure. They've not really shown us anything to support one.
I'm assuming not, just because we haven't seen them together, we haven't heard anything of them together, no one's mentioned anything.
But then again, why is he not with Norma then? If maybe that's the reason why they never got together.
It could be, or maybe just something went wrong. Things didn't line up. You just don't know, do you?
Very possible. Very possible. But then maybe we always see her working late at her job. She's got her drape runners. He's got his his
right,
place.
But you say working late. The place is closed.
Okay, sure, but the idea that they both spend time at their work alone maybe shows their current state of mind.
Yeah.
That said, she's quite optimistic because she's watching Dr. Amp like some weirdo, but otherwise, yeah. So that was it. Silence, and then I just noted the credits play over him sitting there silently. The one thing he does of note though is he lights a match and burns the matchbook that he's playing with, and obviously I don't think there's a super amount there other than fire walk with me, maybe the idea that stuff is a coming kind of thing, So. No, good stuff. One final point, I can't take credit for this one. I did see this on Reddit, because of course Reddit points out these things. You know how Garmin Bosia is like this yellow puke stuff they throw up?
Yeah.
Someone spotted that like 4 different characters in the list were eating various versions of yellow, sort of sludgy looking food. He's eating the soup here. I did actually notice this myself. Sarah Palmer had like a bowl of something.
I noticed one in the diner. It was someone had a bowl.
I think that was Ed's dinner, like when Norma.
I think it might have been Ed's, yeah.
And then I think it was one of the detectives were eating like soup or something at their desk, like at the start of their scene. I don't know if it means anything, but just symbolic, thematic stuff keeps popping up.
Again, it's one of these things where there's a conscious choice of what you put on that table. You could say, oh, it's nothing, but they have to choose what goes on it.
Yeah, so. Had a lot of cherry pies in this, had a lot of yellow food in this, had big TVs. A lot of themes going on here. Weird themes to be having, but themes nonetheless.
Yep.
But no,
it was a good episode.
It was a solid episode, especially once you really look into a couple of the scenes. I think the Sarah scene almost feels like nothing happens in first glance, and then the Audrey scene you might be dreading based on the last scene with
I think it's really easy to write off large chunks of this episode because you go, oh, Sarah Palmer, nothing happened. Oh, Audrey still means nothing. I'm sure a lot of people will see it that way. Yeah, but they're wrong.
They are wrong. If you actually think about it, if you really think about the information that's been presented to you, I think there's a lot of foreshadowing and there's a lot of we're heading towards the third act kind of feeling in this episode if you're looking for it.
Right, that's it. I think that's the thing with this. You do have to think about it to get enjoyment out of it. You can't just watch it and tune out because. Then you'll have 3 minutes of watching Sarah Palmer walk up and down a room.
Exactly, which makes it for me a lot more rewarding because I feel like I'm in a weird way earning my intake of knowledge.
Yeah,
Because I'm engaging with it. It's only giving me the pieces. I have to put them together myself, and that makes it feel like I'm.
It's more enjoyable because, like I say, it's that sense of engagement because
Yeah.
you are forced to engage. I say forced, but like you have to do it if you want to get that enjoyment. It immediately it puts you more. You're more into the show just because you're consciously thinking. You're not just putting it on.
By the way, how many comments do you want to bet we've got telling us what Ghostwood was? Because they typed a comment just before I said, "Let me look it up and find out."
There'll be at least 3.
Aye, and we'll see how many of them go back and say, "Oh, no, I got to the later part. You didn't need me to tell you. No, I'm just going to leave it."
Or just delete it. Go, oops, don't need that.
Yeah, FYI, if you delete your comments, we can still see them. Just know that. Just know it.
Yes, you'll go on a list.
So there you go. That's episode 13 of Twin Peaks. We have 5 left. It is exciting and scary to be so close to the end. But let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel and everything we do here, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and you can do that over there. But otherwise, guys, that is us. So thank you very much once again. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla for you and I?